And welcome back to another edition of the MLB Inside the Diamond podcast. I'm your host, Tom Johnston. I'm joined by LaMarr Fields. How you doing, brother?
Pretty good, you?
Yeah, it's just another fine, lovely week in Pittsburgh. The Pirates, they seem to. I can't explain the Pirates. I really can't. But lots of news in MLB this week. So we're going to give a deep dive into it. I think the biggest news of all right now is the fact that Steven Strasburg has reportedly been shut down by the Nationals for various reasons. But the main reason is it's another setback due to severe nerve damage. And a lot of reporters just looking at the reports think that, even though Strasburg himself hasn't called it a quits, I want your thoughts, Lamar. He's in his mid 30s. That contract that the Nationals gave him was a pretty lucrative one, but it just seems like no matter how many steps forward he takes, it's always one major step back. Where do you think it lies for him in his career and overall? What are your thoughts on it?
Pretty bad for him. There's severe nerve damage. That's pretty bad thing to hear for a pitcher. I don't know what the timetable looking like, but probably ain't gonna pitch this year. Safe to say. And if he does try to come back, I think he should probably try moving to a closer, so it'd be less stress on his arm as far as pitching 100 plus pitches a game. Just tough situation, man. Got all that talent, just can't get healthy.
Yeah, I would totally agree. In a lot of ways, I really feel bad for a guy like him because as much hype was built around him in the early stages of his career, and he was a great pitcher, phenomenal. He had a very tough fastball to hit, often, reached a mid to upper 90s, sometimes reaching over 100 miles an hour. Like he was in the top it off. I mean, I don't know much about San Diego State St. Aztecs baseball program. I do know that it I do know from years past that they do have a very solid program, but to even be a talent like Strasburg to say, I really didn't even go to like a top tier major program like in the SEC or, you know, they're about wherever else. I mean, there's also top tier programs in the Pac 12 and the Big 12 and, in the Big 10. But to say that, hey, I mean, I've represented San Diego State. Like, that's where I went to play my college ball. And, to transform, into that. I mean, it's obviously tough. I mean, and in a lot of ways, I want to touch on something with this is this really deals a lot more with mental, like the mental, with like the mental with band versus a anything else with it. Just because of, you know, it takes more mentally to figure, okay, how many setbacks am I going to have? But more importantly, it's the mental capacity to say, I'm not going to let these multiple setbacks define me and have me call it a quits. Like my mind's going to be stronger than my body isn't. And I think this is a perfect example, like his body, like even though severe nerve damage is a serious condition, and there's a lot of things that can cultivate to that. It's more about, okay, well, how much is Strasburg mentally willing to go through to actually potentially make a comeback? But I also agree with you. I think that it might be time to shift focus that if he does come back, because there's still that possibility. You don't really want to rule anything out, but if he does come back, maybe it's better for him to have a platoon role in the bullpen where, it's not as rigorous as it would be if you're the starter. If you're the reliever, that's great. It could be a lot less stress on his arm. It could be a lot less stress on his body. But in all honesty, I mean, it goes to show. I mean, the Nationals handed out that. I mean, not saying that they legit handed that out. I mean, in some ways, he deserved that contract. But just to have someone signed to that contract, but like let's be realistic, he physically like hasn't really even pitched at all this season in the major leagues. And on top of that, like I do see that in like his 2022 stat line is actually outrageous. 0-1 win loss record with a 13.50 ERA, 5 strikeouts and a 2.14 whip. But I mean, even then, I mean, it's just it's tragic. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, stats do speak volume.
Yeah, it's pretty sad for Strasburg, man. I enjoy watching him pitch, but over the last few years, he what made haven't pitched pretty much at all. Just injury after another. Just sad, man. You see all guy with this talent that can't get healthy.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I think that can play into that. It's because you could do everything to be healthy, and it just might be your body just doesn't function as great as it does in your 20s and your 30s and in your 40s, and it's just it's sad. I mean, with all the work baseball players put in, and for that matter, any athlete, like sooner, like at a certain point, it gets to them, and it catches up to them, and I mean, it's sad. I mean, he was a talented pitcher coming up, and it just stinks when that stuff happens. But more importantly, the Reds have made some news for all the right reasons per se. They've had a rookie phenom in Ali De La Cruz that has, quite frankly, he's impressed me in the little film that I've watched on him. Um, in fact, the Dodgers have been a victim of a couple walk-offs this week. One in part or a couple in part due to the Reds, and then another one on Friday night against the Phillies in Philadelphia. But I want your thoughts on this, Lamar, because a lot of baseball experts per se, are saying that this could honestly be the rise in Cincinnati. With where they're at, with who they've lost to, but more importantly, the people that they've called up. How much do you think De La Cruz is actually going to add value? And I say that considering we haven't been able to see enough of him to like see what his potential is, but there's a lot of buzz about what his potential could be.
Well, you're a team like Cincinnati haven't been good the last couple of years. Bring some young talent up, breathe some life into your franchise. I mean, he's gonna go through hot and cold streaks. It's part of the game. I mean, adjustments are going to be made. He's going to struggle a little bit and just go how he handle it. But definitely get some life to Cincinnati. Get some people on the ballpark and people wanting to watch to see how this kid does. A switch hitter, very rarely see that now. And I look, I, I don't really watch Reds games, but if I see him on TV, I'll stop and see his at bats.
I've seen a couple just because I do have MLB.TV, but I mean, yes, I think it was yesterday, or it might have been a previous game this week. He actually ran through the third base's coach signed to stop, and he continued going. Those are little tiny rookie mistakes that rookies will make. But often, you got to ask yourself, okay, it's great to show your talents, but sometimes like you don't want your talents to get the best of you, and then you actually cost your team a vital like spot where like momentum is actually building in a game to where like okay, by you stopping, that could have actually been beneficial to actually scoring a run versus you running through my stop sign thinking you can actually beat it and then you don't, and then like, well, that's an opportunity that's wasted. So I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, rookies are going to have their bumps, but I mean, this dude's first like career home run, like dude, literally, like I knew it was gone whenever like it went off the bat. Like I just said, yep, that ball's gone. Like you could just tell with certain swings, but like he almost hit it out of the Reds ballpark, and the lucky fan that got to meet him after the game, got a few signed pictures for his friends and stuff. But I mean, I honestly say that there's promise there, but I I don't want to say that the Reds won't be in contention this year because anything can happen. We're just getting into the part of the season where you're going to start to see who's really contending and who's really pretending and stuff like that, and like you're going to
Mm-hmm.
see you know teams transform. But overall, I mean, if the Reds don't contend this year, I know and I have a strong feeling that he is going to be one of the catalysts that's going to have the Reds contending within the next 2 to 3 years, if that. And I say that very conservatively because, let's be realistic with who the Reds just called up. Like, you never know who can turn around a team in that regard, but you never know who's going to actually gain the juice to get up there.
Yeah, exactly.
Now on to some other news because it's like I kind of just mentioned it, but the Dodgers, they're also battling some injuries of their own, but more importantly, they've suffered a few walk-offs this week. I think it was two at the hands of the Reds, and I know that they got walked off against the Phillies on Friday night. But then whenever you look at it, like there's also some missing pieces to the Reds, like Julio Urias. He was supposed to make a start this week in Philadelphia, and Dave Roberts just said it's not happening. His hamstring's still bothering him. And for people that don't really know what's been going on is like the Dodgers are in a tight race in the NL West. A lot of people would have expected them to be in a much better position record wise than what they actually are. And I'm not saying that where they are is, bad or good, but the NL West is starting to really speak up. Like there are people that are going to be challenging the Dodgers. I think it goes to show that just because you might have all the talent in the stacked payroll that the Dodgers do have, unless you have depth under that, and I'm not saying that the Dodgers don't, but you can't just rely on who you have. You have to make it to where, other guys are still in the pipeline that way that they can help produce. What are your thoughts so far on the Dodgers? And do you think that they can really turn it around with Kershaw getting up there in age, but more importantly, just their pitching and their hitting?
Dodgers started a little bit slow this year, but looks like they played better 4-6 their last 10 games though. But they need to get their pitchers back on track. They're hitting a lot of home runs, scoring runs, just pitching. Kilo Arias has struggled, been hurt, so they just got to get their pitchers back on track. I mean, they 37-28. I mean, they right there. Nobody saw the Diamondbacks being where they was, so that's surprising. But yeah, I think down the stretch, if they can stay healthy, maybe make a trade here and there, yeah, they'd be fine. I don't know if they're gonna make. Who knows if they're gonna make a trade? They're gonna be trying to chase Otani, so I don't know if they're gonna be wanting to add any more money to their payroll right now.
Their payroll's already like what? Oh, it's I know
Yeah,
it's for sure it's over 200 million, but it could be approaching 300.
yeah. Well,
I
they
mean,
really didn't.
yeah.
Well, a lot of that money was already on the books. They didn't really spend a lot of money this offseason.
I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, whenever
Yeah,
you look at the Dodgers, a lot of people say, oh, the Dodgers are always constantly up there. But it kind
yeah,
of reminds me of the Yankees in a lot of ways because it's just like, what people don't realize is, well, it's not that they're constantly spending money. It's just they just have a lot of their talented core guys signed to long-term deals that they're
yeah.
spending a lot of money I mean, like, take, for example, Clayton Kershaw, a guy that's been injury prone years past, like 1 year, $20 million deal. I got nothing against that, but like that's just a prime example of like, the Dodgers see the talent, they're willing to pay and invest into the talent. And, I think that goes a long way. I mean, you got a starter going every fifth day that's making $20 million.
Yep.
Not that I got anything against that, but like, you got a starter every fifth day that is making $20 million. Like, that's like literally put regular day position player type money that you're giving to an every fifth day guy. And that's just, hey, the Dodgers see the talent. I don't got a problem with that.
Yeah, Dodgers got $228 million payroll for this year, and that's fifth.
So who are the top four?
The Mets are number one, 344 million. Yankees two, 279 million. Padres three, 246 million, and Phillies four, 243 million.
And you said the New York Mets, and it's kind of crazy considering, I mean, I get the Mets situation with where they're at, they're fourth it, but I just want to give people an example. The Mets have the top payroll in all of MLB and are right now fourth in the NL East standings.
Yep, we even got a winning record. And Padres up there too, and they're currently fourth.
And that's the whole point. Like that's something I really like to express to folks is, I mean, and I know I've criticized Bob Nutting in the past for not spending a lot, but it's ultimately about where you're choosing to really spend your money, and more importantly, it's really how you're choosing to spend it. Like
Yeah,
for example, everyone can say, oh my God, the Mets are without Edwin Diaz, their closer, and this, that, the other. And like, yeah, that's great, but Edwin Diaz only actually he only comes in when the Mets need him to close out a game. Like your offense has to produce, but more importantly, your pitching staff has to produce. Like it is an equal level playing field in that regard because in what is it? What game did I see the other day where they received a strong pitching performance, but the offense just didn't show up? And that's what I tell people: like your pitching can show up, but if your offense doesn't, like you can't expect your pitcher's not a one man team. Like they need the offense to support to actually sustain the lead and give you guys a shot to be in there. Like I honestly feel bad when that happens because it's just like
hmm
really like I'm out here throwing a gem and my offense just doesn't show up. And then like, as a manager, you get frustrated because then it's just like this guy's really throwing a gem and we're sitting here wasting this. Like this is unreal. But it's
yeah.
just
You got the
yeah.
teams with the teams with the teams that had a lower payroll are doing it with young players who their contracts ain't up yet, but it all comes in hand because the players like the Orioles are 29th, Pirates 28, the Rays 27th. Yeah, you all sit here and got to spend money. You ain't got to spend money to win stuff like that. But these players are on like young rookie deals, and when they rookie deals, when them deals come up, you have to pay up. And if you don't, they're gonna leave.
Oh, and I would also like to point out something with that. Those rookies are going to play their tails off for three reasons. They want to show that they're actually worth
Yep.
more than what their rookie contract states. But obviously, you want to see the growth and potential where at some point it's like I'm gonna be producing like I've got something to actually fight for to get a better contract because
hmm
while I appreciate the contract I currently do have, I know this is not what I'm worth, and I'm saying that in a good way to show you the results on the field that I mean, hey, I mean, and I agree. I tell people all the time, it honestly surprises me to see, McCutcheon with his leadership, Carlos Santana with the Pirates with, his leadership. But all of a sudden, you see a lot of these guys on the Pirates staff, and, a lot of these guys are younger guys, but, ultimately, you got to ask yourself, what is fueling them? And it's the fact that, they their contracts are going to be up soon, but they want to prove that hey, like I don't mind being a guy that produces as a rookie or on my rookie deal, but at the same time, I really just I want to be better than what I want to show people that I can do this and that I can be better, but be better for the team and not just for myself. So I think it really works hand in hand. You start to see there are some veterans on ball clubs, they get paid for what they've done previously, and then they don't live up to the actual contract. But then people got to realize is that was mainly paid based off of what they previously did. And then there's some that actually produce even more and stuff. And I mean, even to touch with the Mets, I mean, a scary situation, happened this week with Pete Alonso. I mean, thank God that, his x rays came back negative. But I mean, he's not even with the team right now in Pittsburgh. He's back in New York, and I think the Mets are doing a very precautious thing because they know the value that Pete Alonso brings to the team, and they're trying all things possible to really avoid him being on the shelf for the long term or even for the short term. But even with the age, you look at a team like the A's, they are 26 and a half games out of first place. They're 16-50, by far the worst record in all of Major League Baseball. And in the past like 3 weeks alone, they've beat the Braves 2 out of 3. They just came off of a series beating the Pirates 2 out of 3. And they also beat the Brewers that are in the mix of things in the NL Central 2 games in a row. So it's like, as easy as this is to say, oh yeah, well the A's are, they're the worst team in baseball. There's a lot of fuel that can fire that to actually have them because, like at the end of the day, they're in a crazy situation, like maybe they're trying to have a stadium proposal to Las Vegas, and they're just like, but how much money is Oakland, the ownership of Oakland, willing to fork up to actually help build a stadium? Because let's put it this way. The way Vegas is looking at that is well, you want us to fund $380 million. Well, we actually hope that like if you actually do change like cities and everything, like you would actually invest into a great team because why would Vegas want to put $380 million of taxpayer money to fund a stadium and everything where Oakland just literally brings the same product that they have in Oakland to Vegas? They're not going to want that because it's just like, where's the ROI coming from? Like, it ain't going to make any sense. But it's just nice to point those smaller things out because it goes to show people like, even I'm pretty sure Oakland's just catching a little fire right now because they're just like, this has got to be crazy. I mean, just to give comparison, the Royals are 18-46, so they're not too far behind on the worst record, but they're also only 14 and a half games out of the AL Central. But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, A's playing good, but still on track to lose 100 games.
I mean, I think that they're probably going to lose 100 games. I mean, it's evident. But I mean, I also think that in a long ways, it's a lot to deal with ownership. Like how much are you willing to invest into like, your team? Like, what was the Oakland A's payroll whenever you were look? Because I'm pretty sure you looked on Spot Track, right? Because they do
Yeah,
that.
59 million.
How much,
59 million.
folks? That is absurd.
But the Orioles are 66 million, Pirates are 75 million. So I mean, it's more, but not too far off. They just get they just get flat because they was good in the early 2000s and didn't want to spend money then either. So that's why they get all this flack. And they had Giambi and Tejada and all, and they didn't want to pay them no money, so let them all leave. But it's all part of their plan to try to get out of Oakland.
No, do you think that they're on purposely doing this stuff to get out of Oakland, or do you?
Yeah, there's no way. Yeah, no way. You can't, especially if they want to move to Vegas. I bet if they move to Vegas, they'd start trying to spend some money. They would have no choice.
I mean, they have no choice, especially if
Yeah.
Vegas forks over $380 million in unfortunate taxpayer money to fund that stuff. Because then, like they're obviously gonna like want to like say, yeah, if we like, because I was actually listening to a podcast. I listened to Lenny Melnick's Fantasy Daily podcast, and this guy like really comes with the most insane stats ever, and I love listening to him because of how he brings it. And I literally sit there and I tell myself, here's one thing Vegas should have in a contract clause if they agree to do this. If Vegas forks over to $380 million in taxpayer money to fund this stadium, Oakland better spend money out of their tail this offseason to have a $100 million payroll. Because in my humble opinion, and this is just me, but whenever you look at owners across Major League Baseball, most of them are very wealthy. In fact, the Pirates owner is one of the top 10 most wealthiest owners in all of baseball. But there's no reason you can't sit there and say that you can't afford a $100 million payroll as a Major League Baseball owner. When, if I tell people, if you look at how much half of these teams cost to like acquire and buy the team, there should be no reason you have an excuse to say, I can't afford a $100 million payroll. And if you say, oh, that's too much, then you should really not be owning a Major League Baseball team because, the fans are working their tails off to, come and help and support the team and to put money so that the team has money. But for you to just put a mediocre product out there and to just say, oh, I don't want to do that. Well, the fans don't have to come to the game. The fans could just say, well, if you're not willing to reinvest this into the team, why should we even bother, coming to support? I mean, it's great to draw a fireworks night, free shirt Fridays, the whole 9 yards, dollar dog nights, but that's not enough to persuade me as a fan to like, you know, really come and spend money to watch the team that's probably going to be average to mediocre anyway. Because it's just like, well, what do I care? Great, there's a great promotion, but like, what do I care? Like, it's just. I mean, it's unfortunate. It really is. But I mean, do you think the
Yeah,
proposal's going to move through with Vegas?
I don't know what's gonna happen. I just know they're trying to push it through without having all these hearings try to push it through without a people's vote.
That's going to be an issue because
Yep.
to me, I think, and this is just my humble opinion, I think that the people should have a right to vote, especially if like $380 million of taxpayer money is on the line. Because after all, like you're taxing the people of Las Vegas. I'm pretty sure
Mm-hmm.
taxes and living in Las Vegas are not cheap by any stretch. But
Just no what's the name? No state tax. I know
okay,
that for sure.
no
So
income
that's
tax.
see that's what but that's why I say yeah they're gonna spend a lot of money, but people are going players are going to want to play in Vegas. People are going to go to the games, whether it's a rather if it's a A's fan or another fan, something to do. Let's go catch this baseball game
Well, I get that.
and
I
let's
mean,
see.
after all, you would think that hockey in Vegas wouldn't have happened, but yet here we are.
Yeah, and they about to win the what's the name?
Stanley Cup, yeah,
Yeah,
they're up 3-1. I mean, but this is a crunch time in that series because you're up 3-1, and the Florida Panthers know, well, it's do or die every game unless I tie this up. But like, I mean, I just think that Vegas really has what it takes to
yeah,
win this whole thing. But anyway, I mean, I get it. People are going to be attracted to Vegas because even prior to sports even prior to professional sports being in Vegas, Vegas has always been an attractive site for tourists all over the country just because of what
mhm.
Vegas has to offer. But you add baseball and you add hockey and the whole 9 yards. I mean, and it's not like Vegas doesn't have a baseball team already because they have a minor league affiliate because they have the Vegas 76ers.
No, I
And
got the A's minor league team was down there, the Aviators.
yeah, so I mean, Vegas does have, you know, they do have sports. It's just now that you add professional sports to the mix, I would also wonder, would you keep the Oakland A's just name them the Vegas Athletics, or what would you actually do?
Gotta be a Las Vegas A's.
Or maybe like the Las well wait, would the Las Vegas Aces work?
No, we already got a Las Vegas Aces, a WNBA
Okay.
team.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you would have to think of something because I mean,
It's
it's
gonna be
it's
Las Vegas A's. They ain't gonna change. They ain't gonna change the A's name. Las Vegas Athletics.
It's true. That would be a lot harder to do if anything. But I mean, no, I get it. It's just, it is what it is. But I think that this is going to be a challenging move for the franchise because the people are going to want to have a vote, and even then, it's just like it's a challenging situation, but it's one thing where you get to learn a lot because it's just like, okay, well, why do you want to move? Well, then let's put it this way: what makes you think that by moving to Vegas is going to change the ownership's mentality of spending this and spending that? But then, like, what is it? I also heard like the Athletics owner has even come out and said, I would want most of the A's games there to start at 4 o'clock. That way, people can go to like like they can have fun in their entertainment in Vegas afterwards. I'm just like, wait, so then you want to like constantly have A's games at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? I was like, I think that really puts a lot of fans at a disadvantage unless they're on vacation. But even then, I mean, I I wouldn't understand why you would want baseball games at 4. But it is what it is. I mean, that brings me to the last
Yeah,
topic.
because the Aviators last year averaged 6,000 fans a game.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what time are their games at?
They play out there. They play outside, so they're playing at night.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't play no day games in the summer. You can't play no day games in the summer in Vegas. It's too hot.
Oh, I know, but I'm
Unless
just
you
saying
got
though,
the
the A's current owner said that if he were to actually move the team to Vegas, he would want majority of their games to start at 4.
unless they have a dome. Only way
That
that
would be
works.
the only way that works. Because I know it is brutal in Las Vegas in the summer.
Yeah.
it's crazy, man. I can't even explain the Pittsburgh Pirates show. Like, even like, and this is what gets me. You get the worst team in baseball, and no pun intended to the A's, but let's just face it, stats are stats, and they prove that they're the worst team. And yet, here you are losing 2 out of 3, and then you come and you beat the Mets Friday night 14-7, lose to the Mets yesterday 5-1. The rubber matches today, and yet here the A's are on a tear. They've beat the Braves, they've beat the Pirates, they've beat the Brewers. I I'll never understand this, but this is what makes sports so unique because you think that the teams that you should beat, you sometimes don't, and then vice versa. It's like the teams that you shouldn't beat, like you end up beating. Is it just that sometimes these teams just catch each other at the wrong time? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, and I'm not here to say that like the A's are just the doormat of the MLB, but like they still got pride to play for. But I don't get it.
Yeah, catch team in the wrong time. Baseball plays every day. You ain't gonna be top notch every day. 162 games. Tired. People be some of your hitters being slumped. There's a lot that goes into it. I
Oh,
mean, you want to take care of business, but you don't. You just gotta move on and keep playing. A lot of games left. It's like the Giants. Giants swept the Rockies, got their record up to 32-30. Come home against a Cub team that's not really that good. Could have stacked up some more wins and lost the first 2 games of the series. So, I mean, it's a lot of mediocre teams right now. A lot of records jumped up together: 32, 32, 31, 33, 30, 35, 34, 31, 33, 30. It's it's all jumbled. A lot of teams jumbled up right now. So, like you said, it's going to be some of these teams are going to take off and start winning, get hot and win a streak. And some teams might stay there. Some teams going to just fall out. Typical baseball.
I also think it has a lot to do with the way that the scheduling format is because whenever you have to face every single team that exists in the MLB, that adds another element to it because then it's just like, wait, how good really is this team? Because now you get to face every team because but prior to the new schedule formatting, everyone would kind of question, well, how good is this team if they never face this team, and now it's like you get to face every team, so it's like and it's just it's crazy, but I mean, I like the element that it adds because it truly shows the true potential of the team and it adds that extra element that wow, like Major League, okay, it made like because it makes everything more interesting because you cut back on the divisional games, which makes
Mm-hmm.
every single divisional game more vital than what it
Yep.
used to be. And then on top of that, you're facing every single team. So it's like any given day. I mean, I tell people like, you know, I can almost bet you that, right now a lot of baseball players are tired. Like they are playing through fatigue, they're playing through everything because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right now, what we're like over 60 games into the season, but like the same time, like, there's a lot of fatigue, 4 game series, 14 straight games being played, traveling a lot, like
Yeah.
that all catches up to you. Like, it's easy to say, oh yeah, you're a professional, you asked for this. Well, I mean, yeah, they're a professional, but like, it's not like they all ask, oh yeah, let me go play in 3 different time zones in 3 different series and this, that, the other. Like, let me go do that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not any human could actually do that. Like, it's frustrating. But I mean, hey, this is where the turning point goes. I think that a lot of teams are going to see their true potential down the line, and it's going to make for an interesting. It's going to make for an interesting game. Rest of the start of the season. I usually like to say that the season actually starts now because this is like
Mm-hmm.
where the turning point starts to happen because you're in June and you go into July, and then like the All-Star game and then the whole 9 yards, and it makes for a very unique circumstance, which a lot of us baseball fans enjoy, to say the least. Got
Yeah.
anything more to add?
No, just see how it plays out.
Oh, definitely. That makes it very interesting because we got the Yankees and the Red Sox this week, and we also have them next week, and the
Yeah.
series is tied 1-1 right now, and you know it ultimately made me think, and this just hit me is how Red Sox and Yankees games are going to play out with all these new rules, because it's just like Major League Baseball wanted to change the rules before it too. 4 hour Yankees Red Sox games is brutal, but I think now look
Yeah.
at it, some of these other games, it's gonna be quite interesting. But that's gonna do it for this edition of the MLB Inside the Diamond podcast. For LaMarr Fields, I'm Tom Johnston. We're gonna see you guys on the next one.